Okay, hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about the Link's Awakening art book. Or well, rather than just talking, also sort of showing. So today I'm going to be going over a bunch of cool things I found while I was looking through it, which I thought I'd like to share with you lot, because well, the game came out the other week or so ago and I've been really enjoying it. Well, I finished it, but I'm playing it again and figured let's go through the art book. You know, I've been busy playing the game, so not much time to make an actual theory video or anything, but well, looking through the art book I can do. So the first cool little thing which I noticed is Link's designs. They actually had quite a few designs for Link in this game, both in the sort of toy-like art style, but also not. Looking at the toy-like art style ones first, they're actually pretty interesting. So they've got 8 of them, is it? Yes, 8 of them. Whether that's coincidental with the fact that there's 8 instruments or not, I don't know, but the first one's not even coloured, but they all look kind of the same. It's just the main problem with them all, for me, is his nose. He has a big nose on them, and it sticks out like a line from his face and looks... No, don't give him that, please, why? But I mean, in general, he feels kind of chunky on a lot of them, and I'm glad with the final design they went with, suffice to say, you know? However, that's not all they had. They also had some, like, well, I wouldn't say adult, I'd say more realistic Link-looking designs, both in colour and not in colour. So they show the coloured ones with just him sort of stood there, in a default pose, I guess. Not even a T-pose, just a default idle pose. The colouring on there looks very nice. It reminds me of A Link to the Past and the Oracle games and all that a lot. I'd have been up for him in this art style in the game, but I'm glad with the one we got. I really like the one we got. Either would have been cool though. Seeing a Link like this in a future game I'd fully be up for. Speaking of more realistic looking designs, they didn't just do it for Link, and that gets onto my next point. They've also done it for a lot of other characters. Firstly we have Marin and Tarin. Sorry that Tarin's one's a bit blurred here, I did scan them myself, so they won't be of full quality, but you can see what they tried here. And you can also see why they went with the final more toyish look. I mean, they look okay, I guess, it's just bumping into them in the game. I don't think I would find them as pleasant to talk to as they were when I bumped into them the way they actually are in the game, suffice to say. And the witch here? Well, just looking at her, yeah, not even that much to say about that, just... I'm glad that's not in the final blooming game. If it was, I would be very worried. Now, the Moblin Chief has one actually, and this is interesting. I actually like it, unlike most of the realistic ones. Just look at it, he looks really cool. He looks kind of like a Moblin from Wind Waker, I guess you could say. Except, red, a lot more cooler, and with a big bat thing. I don't think it fits Moblin Chief as he is in Link's Awakening, I'll give you that, but seeing this design somewhere in Zelda as a fight or an enemy, oh my god, that'd be so nice. I would really like that. Another of the more weirder ones here. Madam Meow Meow, aka the owner of Bow Wow, the Chain Chomp. Yeah, look at her. I'm really glad that wasn't in the final game. There's also a more realistic one of Richard inside Canalet Castle as well. He looks pretty nice like that. There's also a few of the enemies from Canalet Castle too, in a kind of more realistic setup. I like those too, but I really like the Richard one there. The only thing I dislike is that it just looks like Marth from Fire Emblem just stood there in a Zelda area and like, okay, why? Now there's also one here of the mermaid, kind of the same as Marin, I guess you could say. I don't know, that would have probably been a bit more okay in the final game, but I still prefer the actual one they had. Now, putting characters aside, the main other thing in the game is items, and oh boy, they had a lot of designs for items. I'll bring up a ton of them on screen now, but some very notable ones which I find is, well, for starters, the shield. They have the original shield as one of the designs they did here, of course, but they went with the Hylian shield in the end, which is an interesting choice. Personally, I like the Hylian shield one more, and I think it fits more, but it would have been cool to see the other one in there. It does look pretty nice, and it does fit more, I guess. Sword-wise, they actually went with neither of them from the concepts they have there, so yeah. I think the final sword fits pretty well as well, so good for them. The magic powder bag also had a lot of different forms actually, they look pretty nice. I think they chose the right form for the final thing, but the others could have been pretty cool. One thing I am noting as well, I cannot confirm this, but it looks like with these they did just go with the original design from the original game in most cases, despite designing a ton of cool other ones, so although I get they're staying faithful to the original, it could have been cool to see the weird other ones, you know? The hook shot. Now this had some very nice designs on it. I personally find it kind of a shame that they skipped out on some of these, because they just went with a default hookshot on the end, but look at it, there's one which literally looks like a fish on the end, like the bones of a dead fish or something along those lines, which I find fits it so well. And they probably knew this too, which is why they did it. Like, you're in it's a fish dungeon, the catfish is more. It looks like a fish. The hookshot having a fish design is cool for that. But then also the sort of bone-like design matches the fact that you have to fight Master Stelphos to get it. It suits it so well and they didn't go with it and it makes me sad. I mean, the final design does look nice, yes, but oh, I would have liked that design, I really would have. Anyway though, ocarinas. Oh boy, the designs here are interesting. Very interesting. Like, they're all so varied and they all look very cool in their own right. Third one is kinda looks like reminds me of a mug. Oh, probably because it's got a handle on it. Yeah, I don't like that one. The fourth one, I really like this one. There's a little windfish picture beside it, and that's because it's inspired by the windfish. Just look at it. That would have been really cool if they'd had that in the final game. Honestly, I prefer it. E is just... what the hell is this? How's that an ocarina? I don't know what they were on when they designed that one. G reminds me of the Ocarina of Time, but without a Triforce, so glad we didn't get that, because repetition is boring. And it'd add complication lore-wise, and I don't like lore complications. The Flying Rooster. Yeah, he's not an item, but you kind of use him like one, and he has a bunch of cool designs, so let's look at him. So first of all, there is a design for a regular cookie version too, and then there's all sorts of alternating and weird in-between designs. There's green ones which look like some kind of jungle parrot bird, one that looks like he's wearing a mask or like an inkling eye sort of thing. Some of these things are really weird, honestly, like... just look at them. I don't know why half of these exist. Why were they considering these? Regardless though, it's cool to look at for sure. Chamber Stones had tons of different designs. Might be surprising to some of you, but it's not too surprising to me. It was an entirely new item. They had to go through designs to get a good one for it, so it makes sense. Some of these designs though were... I don't really get how they fit the idea of it being a stone that you place in the tile, which is why I guess they went with a square one for a final design. Some of them remind me of Pale from Hollow Knight, actually. Just a side note there. Now, let's look at boss concept art. There's quite a bit of boss concept art in this book, and oh boy, do I love a good bit of boss concept art. Starting off, we have Genie. Just aesthetically, he's probably my favourite boss in the game, Genie. So, here, have Genie concept art. Look at it, it's great. Moving on to the next one, another one of my favourite bosses is Slimeal. He also has some pretty cool concept art, although an interesting thing here, he has two. One with and one without the glowing pink orb, so you never see him without the pink orb, so it's interesting that that's there, you know? Slime Eye has an especially interesting concept art though. It shows him as a completely clear blob. He's of course coloured in the final game, but here it's just like, well, you can see for yourself, like, I don't even know how to describe it, it's kind of odd. To be honest, I don't like the look of this, it looks weird. I'm glad they kept the coloured design. Evil Eagle. Oh boy, Evil Eagle. The concept art they show for him is pretty small in the size on the whole book, but they give us 6 whole pieces. One of them's a sketch, 5 of them are coloured, 1 out of that 5 is pink. Why is it pink? I don't know if this is just a design thing where you make stuff pink whilst you're designing it, or whether they were actually planning on having him be pink in the game. If there's anyone watching this that knows, I would be grateful to know, but until then, I'm going to assume that they were considering having a pink Eagle in the final game, and man, that's interesting. A pink eagle, what? I mean, yeah, the game's weird, so it would fit the weirdness of the game, but a pink eagle, what are they on, honestly? Now, going from bosses, let's look at dungeons. Or more specifically, Catfish's Maw. Catfish's Maw has a render, I guess you could say, of it from the game, with Link swimming in front of it. It's as if they just screenshotted the game, except they can zoom the camera however they want and it's not got hearts and stuff in the corner. However, you can notice something kind of cool here. The actual dungeon itself, if you look carefully, it feels kind of off. Well, you're right, it is off. It's blue. In the final game, it's just stone, a rock, you know? I'm glad they went with the more rock design for the final one because, well, I don't like the dungeon feeling like a statue of a fish that's more of a figurine. I want it to be a statue of a fish that's a statue, if you get what I mean. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Going along the lines of these style of renders though, there's also quite a few more we can look at, which are pretty nice. For example, Canalet Castle here. Yeah, it's just as it is in the game, but it's zoomed out pretty far, you can see the whole thing. It's pretty nice. You don't really get to see that in the game, a full thing like that, do you? So, there you go. One interesting one here is of the Telltale Mountain Range on the western side of the mountains. Link is stood there in a sort of area with lots of rocks, and right behind where he is, the wall is a wall. You might think that's fine, but if you've played through the full game, you'll know that's not fine. Normally there's a cave there, one which you actually have to go through to get to the final dungeon in the game, and the cave's just not there now. So it feels kind of odd that they missed out a cave in such an important place, you know? Why is it not there? It must be pretty early in development when they took that, or they are able to toggle the caves on and off for the sake of taking these screenshots or whatever. I don't get it. Maybe some of you will. Once again, like the pink eagle thing. I don't know, so worth pointing out that it's there. On the topic of these weird renders, there's one here where it's got Link and Marin at the beach. Now you can actually do this in-game, I'll show it on screen, it's just the thing is, with the in-game one they're not sat on the edge of a cliff like that, they are here. Interesting detail. I honestly like the look of how they're sat like that, and it would have been really cool to see them sat like that in the final game, rather than just stood there, as if leg ache is not a thing. Now, we're on to the final detail I want to go over today, and it's personally the weirdest one, and it kind of creeps me out a bit. So, for those of you who have played through the Colour Dungeon, you may remember Gar and Dion, the two nice skeleton guys which stand at the entrance. There's a blue one and a red one. However, all is not what it seems with these two. The concept art actually shows one of them taking his skull off to reveal a black head with red eyes on it underneath. Like, hiding that image from sight, it just looks like it's a skull with glowing eyes. Not, it's a guy with a black thing for a head with a skull on top. I just find this really creepy. What is he inside the skull costume? Is he even a skeleton, a Stelphos, or is he a weird thing that I don't know what it is and I don't like to think about? I don't know. Any of you know? Please, I need assurance on this. On the topic of weirdness, yeah, the hard-hit beetle. I don't like that boss, by the way, but regardless of that, it shows him without his shell, and it just looks like a tree stump with an elephant tusks on the front, and I don't understand why. Why did they take his shell off? Why is his shell detachable? Why? If his shell's detachable, why does it crack when Link hits instead of falling off? I don't like it. I mean, at the end of the day, all of this is just concept art, so I'm probably just overreacting, but I find it kind of weird at times. Then again, it's Link's Awakening. Whatever. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me get confused over concept art. Make sure to get a hold of the book if you're able to. I highly recommend it. It's great. And that'll be it for me today. Bye.